on myself, or do I do? End of the day, like nothing is really ever guaranteed. Like seeing folks be laid off, and they had a high-paying job with like Facebook and Google, and it's like they're paying top dollar for these people.
On this episode, we have a dope native b-boy. He's been dancing for over a decade. He's on DEF CON 5, and he's also a DJ. So if you want to know more about the Portland nightlife scene, he's your go-to man. I am your host, Tony47, and enjoy this episode. Hey, what's up, guys? We're back at here with another one. I got my guest here, Ben Lamb. He goes by Bazooka Ben. He's been in the game since I started breaking, and he got into other things. He's also currently a DJ right now at different clubs, different nightlife type of deals and wedding gigs. But he's definitely been in the scene for quite a while here in Portland, Oregon. And let's see, how you doing?
Pretty good, man. Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here. And like Tony said, yep, my name is Ben. I go by DJ Bazooka. You can find me playing at the different clubs here in Portland. And I do corporate events, weddings. But yeah, that's my main thing right now.
Dope. So, I want to have you on because you got in with DC5. I think before you're kind of like finding your path of like solo and other crews. And, you've been in the game for a while. And, just like when I see you at jams, you're always there and I was there. And so, like, tell me a little about your story beforehand. So, like, what did you do before you got into DC5, before you got in more competitive? And, like, how old were you when you started breaking?
Yeah. So I guess before breaking, I knew that I always wanted to have like some type of like a creative outlet, something that was physical. So like my first love was basketball. So I did that up until I figured that, living with a single parent, my mom, she couldn't drive. So that meant she wasn't able to take me to like practices or games. So that was really unfortunate. So then I went to got into skateboarding, and that kind of got expensive because you kind of have to replace your shoes and like your board and like different little things. Yeah. And again, it was pretty expensive. So then I got to breaking when I entered high school. So 8th grade was when I discovered breaking, and I had a friend just ask me to stay. Hey, let's stay after school and hang out with some of these guys. I was like, okay, cool. So I started breaking in 8th grade, and then I want to say like 2013, maybe 2014 is when I actually got into DEF CON 5.
Okay. And then what school did you have for those after school program? What school was it?
Yeah, it wasn't really much of an after school program. We kind of just stayed and snuck into the gym, and like nobody like knew about it, which was really cool. Like we just all had this love for like dance, and I think there was a few kids that were like sea walking back then. That was really popular back in like, when I was in 8th grade. What was that, like 2009?
Early 2000?
Yeah, early 2000. Like that was huge.
I was doing some sea walk back
Yeah,
in the
we were
days.
making sea walk videos and posting that on YouTube, and like we were like pop locking, like doing all that stuff. And I think Soulja Boy just came out.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that definitely brings me back. But yeah, like there wasn't really an after school program. We were there. And then eventually, like, I think the teachers caught on, like, hey, like, you guys can't be here, like, being unsupervised because who knows, like, what we would be doing, Yeah. And I think the most important thing is, like, if one of us got hurt, like, like, what would we do? And eventually, like, they recognized that, like, hey, there's actually a community behind this. There's a group of people that, like, want to do this outside from, like, your sports or band or whatever, like, what kids typically would do in high school.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we stayed after school, started to kind of just dance and like figure things out. And thankfully YouTube was around. So that's how we kind of learned from each other, but also from YouTube as well.
Yeah, that's sick. I think the time when I started breaking, I'm pretty sure I started probably a little bit before you within that time. I started when I was like 18 years old. I was a senior in high school. And like I was a year before that, I was just joining like their hip hop club, where they're doing like crumping and sea walk and stuff like that. And I was like, I liked it, but it wasn't like I didn't like gravitate too much in that field. And then Tuan Lee, F1, he goes by a few names, but he went, for some reason, he ended up going to Gresham High School, and he did an assembly thing with a guy named Manny Perez, and I was like, whoa, like that's sick. Like he was doing windmills and stuff, and I was like, I wanted to get involved with him, and like that's what I was like, oh, I think that's what I want to learn and
Yeah.
stuff. And so I linked up with him, and then we kind of kicked it off since. And so he's been teaching me and kind of coaching me back in the day, and that's how I got into to breaking, and then leans into more competitive, more competitions down the road.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, that's cool.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things within breaking. It's not very, it wasn't like really mainstream. Like it wasn't super popular. So unless you were like exposed to it and you were actually curious about it, then like there wasn't really a way for you to like, hey, this is what I want to do, you know? Because anything else, I think when you're a kid, like things that are popular, I'd say like, sports, skateboarding for me, there was a lot of people in like my community that were like skateboarding. So I was like, okay, like I'm going to pick this up.
Yeah.
But I think in high school, because I moved to a different high school during my 8th grade year, I didn't really have any friends. And I think that was one of the reasons why I was like, oh, like I need to do something to like get a good group of friends. And ultimately to talk to some girls as well, like
Right.
I wanted a cool factor, I'm the new kid, like what's cool about me?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I kind of got into breaking, and then joined DC5, started going to their practices. I think at that time, like once I graduated high school, I was working part-time, and then I was like dancing part-time. So it felt like part-time because we would like practice 5 days a week for like 2 to 3 hours on end. And that would like be solo practices of like, doing what you would want to work on. And then after that, we would do like routines or like prep for shows. And it felt like a part-time job. And we weren't getting paid that much at that time. But eventually, like, I was like, oh, we're actually making some good money. Like, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Nice. That's dope. Yeah, because you did DC5, they did shows, and I know that was a Death Row was associated with like the whole Trail Breakers, Otai and stuff.
Yeah.
And then you got associated with that, and you guys were doing some gigs on that as well.
Yeah, so shout out to Otai. He was like the leader for the Trail Breakers, and I felt like, he always kind of recruited within like DEF CON 5. I think it was like natural, and it was kind of like an easy way to kind of like talk to us. And he was also like good friends with, some of the older generations like Steve, Mighty. So shout out to them as well. But yeah, definitely a good time. I remember like I was like my job shadow senior year, like I reached out to Mighty, Brian, by the way, and I emailed him. I was like, hey, like, like I'm really interested in breakdancing, and like I know you're part of the Trail Breakers. Like, can I come and job shadow you guys? And they're like, yeah, sure. And all the communication from there was just through email. And he said, oh, text me once you get there. And once I got there, like, I didn't actually talk to Brian. I talked to Steve. It goes by Steve him, by the way. So shout out to him. Yeah. So, once I got there, I didn't have any Blazer gear. And I was out there with, like, their GoPro because they wanted me to, like, film their performance. And I thought that was cool because I got to be on the court. But as soon as I got into the court, one of the guys that worked for the Blazer, he tried escorting me off the court because I didn't have any gear on. I think that was more of like a branding thing. So, like, yeah, if you're going to be on the court, you need to have some gear on. So they gave me some gear, which was dope. But yeah, it's kind of linking everything together, DEF CON 5 and the Trail Breakers. I guess those are the two crews that I was a part of when I was breaking like regularly.
Yeah, you guys were battling, and you guys had routines and stuff, and you guys were going at it pretty hard for like 5, 6, 7 years, and maybe longer. But
yeah,
I remember. Yeah,
I remember. I mean, this is my perspective, and I thought like the two really strong crews in Portland. When I was breaking, I'd say it was like Moon Patrol and like DEF CON 5, like the older generation. I think they like definitely made a big impact in Portland. That's kind of paved the way. Like I didn't know what it was like before that. I'm sure there were other crews, but my time, I really looked up to these guys because they both have like different elements and different things that you can really see in how like a crew would be like, I guess almost like strategically put together. Whether it's like, hey, we're all friends and we're gonna have a good time, or hey, we're gonna try to win this battle. Like, like I want you on my
Yeah.
crew, I want you on my team, and let's train hard for this. So there's that as well.
Yeah. Speaking of crews, I think at that time, there was, Moon Patrol was really active. DEFCON 5 was really active. Really, they go by PCR, Porn City Rockers, but before they were Vibe Tribe. And they were going pretty hard, a little bit right in between, I say a couple years, a little bit older, because they got a little bit older generations at the time, but they were kicking it off. And other crews, I mean, I wasn't against all odds crew. We were kind of like off and on and competing and stuff like that, but not like full force and like, had routines and like, ready for those type of competitions, So that's pretty cool that you had that and got with DC5 and kind of got that the crew feel where you guys were ready to go.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like one of like DEFCON 5 strategy is like I remember Steve's wife, we were like, oh, we need to get ready for this battle, and she was like, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And that always stuck with me. It's like, yeah, you're right. Like, yeah, we should stay ready. So, we took our practice very serious, and we would do like all these type of like footwork conditioning, like drills, and train like some just crazy ass stuff. And at the end of our practice, we would do like a 2-round battle each person.
Nice.
So yeah, we took it very serious, and I think I was probably in the best shape of my life at that point. But yeah, super fun, and that's kind of like my whole breaking story, I guess.
Yeah. Speaking back, with Mighty in the crew, I remember I used to teach. We were both teachers at Gresham High School one time, and like looking at his training method was like, oh, whoa, this is dope. Like in the beginning, he's like, hey, we do spin over CCs like repetitively for like 10 minutes, and then we'll stretch, and then we'll kind of work on combos in between. And towards the end of the practice or teaching method, we'll do battle mode. Let's battle, battle each other to get like the whole jitters on. Just go for it, right?
Yeah.
Because it can be very nerve wracking when you're actually on a competition. You got the spotlight, you got the crowd, and it could be very intimidating if you're not like used to it. But I mean, I still get that till this day.
Yeah.
But it's just like gotta let loose. Remember your past experience. Like, hey, everyone definitely respects you being out there and always give you props. Even if you do good or bad, at least you're up there,
Yeah, and I guess I'll say this too, and I talk about this all the time, especially when I was pretty active, like towards like the tail end when we weren't competing as much. I'd say like I kind of had this like love-hate relationship with breaking in general, just because when we were training, it felt like it was a part-time job, and at some point almost a full-time job. And it's like, man, like I'm tired, I don't want to be here, I just worked 8 hours, and now I gotta do all this like footwork drills, and I gotta do all this, and it's like we knew it was like good for us, but every now and then we'll pull up to like a different practice spot. And it's just more laid back, and you can kind of like chill and talk, and it's just more fun.
Right.
And with DEFCON 5's practice, it was just very structured, and like, we really wanted to win, and I'd say very effective, but unless you have that like mentality, you just want to be very structured. You can kind of take practice in like different ways. So especially if you're trying to learn a new move, I think it's very effective to be that way.
Right.
Because you can isolate different parts of your practice to work on different things and very focus on one thing. Whereas if you pull up to like, a community center, I think Montevilla was one of them. Great place to, have fun and just connect with like local dancers there. But, if you didn't go into practice that one day and say, hey, I'm going to work on A, B, and C, well, then you could be working on like 6-10 different things and maybe not get as far, Which I think to have a good balance, go to those like more structured practice, but then also like, have fun.
Right.
I think that's if I were to carry it on, I would have more fun. That I still dance now. It's maybe once or twice a week with some of the guys on the west side here. at like the local 24, or I think there's a couple dance studios that are open now for like open practices, which is great.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, just keeping it fun and maybe not so structured so you're not burnt out. But yeah.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like it was getting, kind of overwhelming. You got work, and then you got to take, make sure you got your dance moves in, and then when you go to like community practices and stuff like that, yeah, definitely more laid back. You're kind of like the fun aspect, right? Kind of kicks in a little bit too, versus doing those hours of practice beforehand. So
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like work, right? But definitely, yeah, that's like what a performance team pretty much, where it's ready to go, man.
Yeah, I mean,
So
there was a point, I think, I can't remember which year, but like I think for a good like 6 months, there was maybe like a jam every weekend. And if
Yeah.
there wasn't a jam, there was a show that we were involved with.
Uh-huh.
So we were really busy. Like our weekends were packed, and somehow, we made it work with all the different schedules that we had. And not to mention, like, I think there was a time where it was school, work, and dance, and that's all I had time for. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
make time to do anything else. And now that, I don't dance as much anymore, I've looked into like different hobbies. Like, I picked up snowboarding 2 years ago,
Oh, nice.
fishing last year, and, just trying different things, But I still carry that B-boy mentality where I have that creative lens to kind of look at things differently.
Yeah.
Because as you
yeah.
know, right? Like, as a B-boy, like, you try to make your things or your moves look a little different, because at some point you're going to be inspired by a dancer or somebody that you look up to, and like, hey, that's so cool, like, but I'm going to try it this way and make it mine,
Right.
so
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, I like to say, like, at this time, everything's been done, man. Like, it's like, how are you going to be creative to do that move your way?
Mm-hmm.
So dang, yeah, that's dope, man. So like, how's I know you picked up also other hobbies. I mean, you've been doing DJ for quite a while. I seen your videos and content and stuff like that, where you're DJing clubs and stuff. Do you consider, like, do you do b-boy mixing or DJing stuff as well?
Well, so how I got into DJing is like after like, a couple years into breaking, I knew that like this is something I won't be able to do forever, just because it is such a huge toll on your body physically.
Yep.
And like there's gonna be a stopping point, and you can kind of tell like the older generation, like, okay, like they were at their peak, but then also like they can still kind of dance, but not at the level that they're at. So I still wanted to be in, the hip hop culture. So I picked up DJing, and it helped because there's a few crew members in my crew that are also DJs, so like Mighty Mood, DJ Wicked, Levi. Yeah. Then Oscar as well. He picked that up a few years ago, but it's just like a natural transition. I see that within the community as well. A lot of dancers would kind of transition to music. But yeah, I mean, I think when I first started, I downloaded a lot of breaks. And I kind of practiced with that, and then it slowly transitioned to hip hop, and then like house, and then now I guess I can kind of consider myself like almost open format, meaning that you can kind of hop into like different genres and not really focus on any specific ones, unless like like the venue or management is like, hey, tonight I just want you to play all Latin stuff, So
Gotcha,
I think open format is super fun because it kind of keeps the crowd on their toes. Like they don't really know what to expect, especially if you have some pretty like awesome like baked in transitions, which can be really fun. Yeah.
Okay. Dang, that makes it more exciting, right? So you're not just stuck to one, but you're open to all these other ones. Kind of like dancing, their styles. You got breaking, you got choreography, you got ballet, you got all these features of the whole world, and you can bring it into music, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's amazing.
I think that's why I enjoy like open format DJing, is because like with breakdancing, it borrows from so many different types of genre of dance. Like you can almost like see like a move like, oh, like that looks very similar to this. Like, oh, because it was probably inspired by that type of dance, So same thing with DJing. Like I say, if you're a dancer and you understand, beats, rhythm, and melody and lyrics, you can really pretty much transition that into DJing, because it's all the same concepts, I believe. It just helps you understand music a little bit better. For someone that, has never really touched an instrument or like don't really care for music, it'd be kind of hard to get into. But for me, I think it was really kind of easy, and especially, you know, having friends that were doing it, and then YouTube and, you know, all that are great resources to have.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's pretty amazing. How like the culture, right, it just gives you that feels and like different like movements, like, you know, like more Latin, you kind of want to move your hips a little bit.
Yeah, a little
Like,
bit.
I've never done this before, but the music's taking control.
Exactly.
Right? And dope. It like, so are you have you had any like challenges during your breaking time, like even DJing, you know, like family support, friend support? I know that's not like a normal corporate America type of stuff. Like I would consider that, you know, you're freelancing, you're kind of like an entrepreneur trying to pursue like, how am I you know, paid to do this stuff? And
Yeah.
so, you know, have you had any feedback or challenges that you would like to talk about? Just, you know, how that's going.
Yeah, I guess I would start with like with any of like the hobbies that I pick up. For me, for like dancing and DJing, I mainly did it for like the pure love of it, like because I was just really interested in it.
Yeah.
You know, and I was more into like learning how to do something rather than like, I guess, make money. And I just feel very fortunate that, you know, people out there recognize that like, hey, like this guy can actually do these things and we'll actually pay him for it. Like, oh, that's awesome. But I guess like challenges and struggles, I think, yeah, I mean, like shout out to my mom, but she never really pushed me into any like type of like career like direction or anything like that. She kind of let me kind of choose my own path. But I knew that like I wanted to go to college. I wanted to get a degree.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do that for myself, and kind of like, oh, well, if this stuff doesn't really pan out, I guess I have a degree to kind of fall into. And, you know, who knows what the job market looks like? You know, we just kind of, you know, went through a pandemic, and nobody was expecting that. You know, people thought that would be in their jobs for, you know, probably not in their jobs no more, or like maybe they're doing something different. But I think just being versatile and within knowing how to navigate through those struggles, right? And just having that. I'm kind of rambling on, but
You're good.
But yeah, but it's kind of like, you know, struggles like just normal, like anything, you know, like things will pop up and you just have to learn how to adapt and navigate through.
Nice. That's awesome. That's awesome. So yeah, I went to school as well. You know, I got a computer science degree, got my associate's degree there, and then, you know, been breaking and stuff. That's always been a passion, you know, like you're saying, passion where it's like, yeah, you did it for the love. Currently, you know, going through, I love doing content creating too as well. I always had a passion for like, I did like vlogs, I did videos in the past, and it's just like, it's always off and on kind of deal. And like, I take that in a sense as in breaking, I've always been kind of off and on, and if I like really just stick to all those factors and just never said I stopped, I just kept going, I think there would have been a lot of open doors and opportunities, your ability to kind of grow more from it. And so, like, for my mindset now, for those type of deals like that, I'm, you know, getting in the real estates and all the other things, I'm like jumping in and learning as much as I can and to grasp all the knowledge and just keep doing it and just say, no, I never quit. But, you know, there are slow times that happen and struggles, right? If you got family, you got people to provide and help, where it kind of makes like double think sometimes where, hey, sometimes is it better to get like a W-2 job, you know, just because you don't know your next check is coming versus consistent flow of it. So like pursuing that path, I think is definitely, it's like awesome because you started from a passion and now you're getting some funding from it that helps provide your living. And, you know, I think that is like the ultimate resource of like how to pursue not just through school, but do what you love, and in the end, you know, I think it's pretty great if you keep going, and if even it gets bigger. So
yeah, definitely. And kind of going back to like, I think you mentioned something about like, oh, do I you know, bet on myself, or do I do like a W-2 job that you know where your next check is coming? Like I feel like you know, I just turned 30 and I felt like I had both experience getting a W-2 job, but then also like, you know, freelancing and kind of like running in my own business. At the end of the day, like nothing is really ever guaranteed. Like I have instances where, you know, I've seen folks be laid off, you know, and they had a high paying job with like Facebook and Google. And it's like, they're paying top dollar for these people. Whereas, you know, I talk to my clients like, oh, hey, you know what? You're actually this event is no longer in our budget. We can't actually like hire you for this. So, you know, it happens on both ends, but I think it's like, how do you navigate through that? And it's just being able to adapt. And also like, what is your lifestyle like? Like, do you like to have a new car every single year or like, you know, like, you know, so I think no matter which path you take, whether you want to have your own business or, you know, be a W-2 employee, it doesn't really matter as long as you find joy in what you do. I know we kind of talk a little bit off camera here, but yeah, I recently quit my job. You know, I had a day job and I was DJing. And I just felt like it was too much. But yeah, definitely find your path. And how long will I be doing this as a full-time DJ? I've done it in the past, and here I'm doing it again. But I think, you know, differently and having different experiences can really shape what it will look like in the future for you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just keep growing from what you have now and just keep growing it into other aspects where, you know, give open doors, more opportunities in the future.
Yes.
Cool. Like, is there any, you know, speaking of opportunities, any future things or projects or anything in the horizon on your side?
Yeah, well, I know with like DJing and like I've done a ton of weddings this season. I'm gearing up for like next summer, but something that I do want to work on that I feel like Portland needs is just more day parties.
You're right.
So, I mean, there's a few people, you know, out there. Jerry Bandito, shout out to him. He does this thing called the Day Fade, and it's huge.
In Portland?
In Portland. Okay. It's like one of the biggest day parties that, you know, Portland's probably ever seen, I'd say. I'd say it's very like, you know, LA, California inspired, where that's like a normal thing for, you know, people to kind of, you know, drink in the middle of the day and just have fun and have a good time. And it's a little bit different than going to a club where like, you know, you're expected to be a certain way or whatever, you know, like, you know, a day party, I feel like it's a little bit more relaxed. And, you know, Brian and a couple other guys on the More Bounds, we do like day parties as well, but it's not at that level yet. Whereas we kind of want to go ahead and somehow do that as well. But working on that kind of stuff, I'd say, I don't know about the next 30 days, but maybe like, you know, in the future, how do we turn something like that to where like, oh, it's normal for Portlanders to go out to these day parties, you know, and just be more open to it, and not just like have it to where it's all like hype and like, you know, just more laid back and chill. Like there's a market for everything is what I believe in, you know. We just need to find those people that, you know, and reach those people.
Yeah, definitely. Totally agree. Like, you know, it's normal in other states. I mean, you go to Vegas, there's always day parties, pool parties, right? And like, how do you bring that to where your native home is and build upon that and grow it, right? And so there's definitely a method because it's been done. You just got to find the right path and how to do it. And maybe possibly, you know, talk to mentors or talk to people that's done it where they can help you, give you a better idea of like, oh, okay, maybe Portland's too cold. You know, it gets pretty cold, but throughout, you know, the 4 months during the summer and spring, or is it going to be an indoor thing? And it's during the day though too, where it's, you know, popping and stuff like that. So definitely, that'll be a dope project for sure. And you know, as I'm getting older, like I definitely like day parties a lot more than nights, because once it hits like, I have kids, so when it's like 8 or 9, I'm like, dude, I'm kind of like knocked out. I just like want to like chill at home and not do anything. Because I'm already pretty tired throughout like a full day.
I mean, so I'm the resident DJ at Fortune, and my slot time is from 9 to 2. But what I've realized is like a lot of people show up at like 9:45, 10:15, whereas like before pandemic, you know, people would show up at like 10:50, 11:30, and that's when things will kind of start to pop. But
Yeah.
now the party is like, maybe it's just that venue. I don't know how it is like anywhere else because I'm pretty booked out. But I'd say like parties are like starting way earlier and people are leaving way earlier. Like I
Okay.
feel like people will not. Maybe it's just Portland, but people don't
Right.
like want to stay out that late. Maybe because there's not like a lot of food options that are open out that late. I think that's one thing because we used to have a lot of like 24-hour joints, right?
Yeah.
But now it's like only fast food, so that's kind
Yeah.
of tough.
The pandemic kind of changed
Yeah.
people's schedules and times. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. So you're a main DJ at Fortune. Do you have a niche where of the music? I know you were talking about you're very open for all the other genres. Right now, is there any specific are you mainly like hip hop mainstream, or is there a certain category you mainly do? I know the nightclubs. It's probably more hip hop, mainstream hip hop and stuff like that. But
I'd say like different places. Like I think like Shake and District. Those are other clubs. Mayhem. Like they kind of have like maybe like different nights that are like more theme. Like, oh, we're doing like a Latin night, or hey, we're doing like EDM. So every place has like their own vibe, but it also depends on like the management that wants to put that night together, like how they want to do that. With Fortune, I know that they're very consistent, and the vibe there is like, I'd say it's very early 2000 pop, like just nice, fun party anthems, like great sing-alongs, like that's like the vibe, whereas like some places may cater to more like hip hop, a little bit more ratchet, which is fine. Like there's a market for that. That people want to do that, So there's a little bit of everything. And another thing I'd say too within like the club scene, bottle service is really huge right now too. But a perspective from someone that likes to build up a night and really take people through a journey, like a musical journey. It's kind of hard to like cater to bottle service, because if they bring out bottles to a table, they want like the most hypest song ever.
Right.
But it's also 10:15. So it doesn't make sense within like the timeline of the night. Because if you play, let's say you play the hypest song, whatever is out right now, right? Let's say Lil Uzi Vert, like I Just Want to Rock, right? Like you're playing that at 10:15 when it's midnight, like that's typically what people want to hear, like that's when the club is most packed. But to me, again, it's all about adapting. So, if they want me to play that, I'll just kind of work something else in at midnight, But that's another thing that's pretty big and important. I feel like both big clubs and smaller clubs, bottle service is kind of like the direction that they want to be in for whatever reason. So, yeah.
So you just put a light bulb in my head right now. So like you're talking about when you're playing out there, when you're DJing that night, you want to take them into like a music roller coaster journey through it. And I was thinking, like, so if you're gonna play like that Lil Uzi song, the beginning of the night, you're not gonna play it later, are you? Or it just depends how hype it gets.
It depends. Like I've done where if it's a really long set where I'm playing like 6-7 hours, I may play it twice. But some people will like, no, I don't play a song twice or whatever. But I think use your discretion. Because if it's like a smaller venue or smaller club, most likely people are going to be cycling. They're not staying there the entire night. And that's for a DJ, you need to pay attention to that. You need to be observant. Like, okay, I saw this person here 10 minutes ago. You're playing for, you play 30 minutes and you see them again. Okay, well, they're staying here, Or like, you see the same faces. Like, okay, maybe I won't play that song again. But if you see new faces and there's a completely change of people, I know one of the biggest events, SantaCon. All the clubs are packed and people are bar hopping. So it makes sense for you to kind of play songs maybe 2 or 3 times within that night.
Right. Yeah.
But typically how I kind of structure my set, and most DJs should probably do this, or they probably already do, but just like how you're telling a story, there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. The middle is going to be, your high point, like everything that's happening. And then the beginning, you're like kind of like you're teasing people. You're making people stay there, but you're not like, you know, you're not making people dance right away. It kind of depends on the venue, a lot of elements, but you know, beginning, middle, and end. Like that's how I kind of structure my sets.
And then also like the vibe of the crowd too, right? Let's say you play a hype song at the beginning of the day, but then like everyone's pumped. Yeah, let's go, and everyone's just dancing, and you're you know, if you know you replay that song in the middle or when it's hypest, they might even go off even more, right? So,
yeah, I mean, it kind of just depends. Like typically, I only play songs twice or more than that if I'm in a smaller venue. I'd say Fortune is kind of like more mid-size. So I've seen people stay there from like 9 all the way to like 2 a.m.
Okay,
And some of those people are, you know, some of those people are regulars or whatever. So I try not to do that. You know, especially if, you know, they pay attention. Not that like somebody comes up, hey, you play that song twice. Like you're a bad DJ. Like that has never happened.
Okay.
You know, at the end of the day, most people just want to hear their song. But for example, let's say I play a song and somebody comes in. It's like, hey, can you play this song where I just played it 15 minutes ago? And they just like got to the club. Like, I just played it. I'm not going to play it again. Like, maybe give me an hour and a half and I'll try to like work it in. Yeah. But yeah, it's kind of like use your discretion. Like you want to make the whole happy, not the individual. Right. So whatever you can keep like the whole happy, that I think you did a great job as a DJ.
Dope. Yeah. I didn't know too much about that, and like you definitely explained it, and I was like, it just like made more sense to me in the DJ side with the music, how to like make sure you kind of know from the crowd, and you kind of kick them in, you know, with the music and stuff like that, and it's dope, and I'm sure there's a lot of other techniques that go to it when you're actually behind the DJ, but you definitely give me a story when you come into the club, and you kind of made a sense of a storytelling through that way.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of go off of that, it's kind of similar when you're at like a dance battle or like at a jam, right? Like when you do showcase round, they're not putting out the most fire beats that you're going to dance to. They're just putting on like beats that you can still dance to them, but it's not going to be like the most hype songs. Not until you get to like top 4, final round, tiebreaker. Yeah. And people go crazy. Like, they recognize this song, like DJ Lean Rock or whatever, you know, they're on that beat. Like, you know, right? So it's kind of very similar. You kind of build the night up to make it more interesting. Otherwise, if you play those hype songs, oh man, the rest of the night you better have some fire in your crates. You know what I mean? So, stuff like that, basically. Yeah,
especially because that fire builds that energy, and you're like, oh yeah, I have a little bit more to get out there. Especially in the, you know, like let's say your final round in the battle, and like that, the music. Oh yeah, you give it a go off. Get more hype, get the energy to stay longer, and do what you gotta do, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Dope. So. Cool. And then do you have a favorite breakdance move, like an all-time favorite?
Oh, man.
I'll tell you mine. I love flares. I know I'm not the best at flares. I could hit like 2, 3. I think the max I hit was like 8 at a time. I kind of lost them getting them back, so I want to try to keep those multiple. But, I love like flares,
Man, favorite breakdance move? I think that the move that kind of got me into it was seeing the jackhammer.
Okay.
So if you guys don't know what that is, basically when you kind of spin on one hand, but you're hopping as you're spinning, and it's the move that I like felt like I perfected, and that's like something that I would always do. But I don't know, for whatever reason, a couple years ago I like lost it. I can only do like a few now, but then towards the tail end. Air flares. I think it's one of the hardest moves and most impressive. And for somebody seeing it for the first time, they can't really. I feel like they wouldn't really understand like what's going on. Like, how do you even move your body that way, right?
Right.
And I think now, like, I think I've seen it in the Olympics. Like, gymnasts had, you know, taken that move and added into the routine, like the floor routine. So I think that's dope. Yeah. And we're the one that created it, right? like B-boys did, or breakers did, breakdancers did.
I think it's always been around like in the gymnast, but then breakers took that as well as, and then we just added flavor to it. You know?
Yeah, like we do have different like variations. They definitely clean it up and make it more it looks more like pleasing to the eye. But we make it look, like you said, we add flavor to it. We make it look cooler.
Yeah, and speaking of that, that's probably one of the reasons breaking's gonna be Olympics next year, 2024.
Yeah.
And so I'm like super hyped with that, and I know that they added breaking, they added I believe skating and surfing or something like that to kind of build the older like a younger generation to build up, and I was like, man, I wish this was like 10 years ago, because then I felt like I would have like trained extra hard and be like, dude,
Go to the Olympics.
you have an
Yeah.
opportunity to like be in the Olympics. Like,
Yeah.
that's so crazy to like say that, and like an older generation before us. I mean, we could still probably get there if we train extra hard,
Yeah.
But I know we got a lot of things going on. But like during our youth, like to just like have that in your mind, it'd be like, oh wow,
Yeah.
dude, like you can train. You probably could be in the Olympics. You like keep training, like having that opportunity to open doors, to have it more of like a career aspect in breaking, because it will open doors to like sponsorships. Other companies will get more notice of it, where they consider them as Olympic medalists, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm super hype about that, and to build that for the break scene, because I think we need stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Like I think I've seen who is it? BBoy
Shigekis?
Yeah, I mean,
Dude, he's
dope
crazy
BBoy.
good.
I think he's like a Nike athlete. So like
Is
they
he?
send him
Okay.
like custom like gear and all that stuff. Like I think that's dope. And now that it's
Yeah.
gonna be open to the masses, where it's gonna be broadcasted, like everybody that isn't familiar or don't know, they will know what
Yeah.
b-boying or breakdancing or b-girling is all about.
Into the mainstream.
Exactly.
So.
It's good and bad, because I felt like with like the culture itself, it's always been like like, oh, this is like underground, like
Yeah.
like nobody really knows, like, but then now like it's good, because like, hey, people can make a living off of it, they can have a career in it, like they
Yeah.
can coach, or they can like open like studios or whatever, so there's a lot
Right.
more opportunities, like you said.
Yeah. More opportunities to come in the future for sure.
Yeah.
Dope. Dang, man. Glad to have you on. I think I'm going to wrap up here. If we wanted to book a show with you or try to get in touch with you do you have a social media or email, something that we can fall back on?
Yeah. So DJ Bazooka Ben, you can find me on Instagram. I have a website, djbazooka.com, and then my email, ben@djbazooka.com, if you guys want to reach me there. Just let me know, and we'll go from there.
Dope. And I'll add those links down to the description. And before we wrap up totally, do you have any like takeaways or like any certain things you want to say to like the viewers, audience, listeners, and like any personal aspects you want to say?
Yeah. I think I guess we live in a crazy world where a lot of things are changing all the time, and just be kind, be open-minded, and things that you don't really understand, just try to see things at a different view, and just be kind to each other is like kind of my only thing to leave you guys with.
Yeah, no, that's a real good one, because like, man, there's like mental health out there and all this type of things, and being more kinder to everybody around you it's always a plus for everybody.
Yeah.
Dope. Well, we're going to wrap up here. DJ Bazooka Ben, all his details and information will be linked in the description below. Thank you for watching. Like, follow. Peace.
Subscribe. Peace.
There's going to be a time where you can't go do those air flyers. You can't do those, those head spins. It's going to be something that b-boy and hip-hop, or whatever you do in that hip-hop culture, it's really going to make you a little bit, right? So